Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. So for this week's video I have filmed a full week of workouts. I've wanted to film this video for months now. I really enjoy watching them when other people post them. I think it's quite nice just to get a bit of an insight into how other people train and like what exercises they put together, what they find works and all stuff like that. So yeah, I've wanted to film it for months now, but I wanted to do a gym version rather than a home version, and obviously the gyms have been closed for like the past 3.5 months, so this is the first chance that I've kind of had to actually get it filmed, and I am so excited to share it with you. So as the name sort of suggests, it's going to be a full week of my own workouts. I tend to stick to like a workout plan for maybe like 4, 6, 8, sometimes even 12 weeks. So I'll do like the same workouts every week for that time frame, and then once I kind of get sick of it, I'll change it up and like mix a few exercises out. So this is the workouts that I'm currently doing, that I started doing when the gyms reopened, and that I'll be continuing to do for at least the next like month or so. My only sort of goal at the moment is to work on my glutes, so it is kind of a glute focused training program. I'm currently doing 4 workouts a week, and that consists of 2 lower body sessions, 1 upper body session and 1 full body session. It is a bit of a strange split, but as I mentioned, because my goal is to focus on my glutes, I wanted to make sure that I was hitting lower body 3 times a week, and I also wanted to hit upper body twice a week, and the only way to sort of do that in 4 sessions is to have the 2 lower, 1 upper and 1 full body. So those are the workouts that are going to be in the video. Another thing that I just quickly wanted to mention before I get properly into the video was that this training plan and these workouts are completely like personalised to me. So my goals, what I find works for me, my likes and my dislikes, all stuff like that. So it is fully personalised to me. If you want to follow this yourself, then by all means do so, but I just kind of wanted to say that it is personalised for me, not to anyone else. So just because it works for me doesn't mean that it's gonna work for everyone. So yeah, I just wanted to put that out there before I get started. Remember and give the video a big thumbs up if you enjoy it, and let's get into it. So my first session of the week is always a lower body day. So I always like to start off my sessions with the heavier compound lifts. So the first exercise in this session is always a barbell squat. These have always been my weakest exercise. I don't know what it is about them, but I do tend to struggle with squats. I personally like to have a slightly wider stance with my toes turned out a little bit, and that really helps me to feel it in my glutes a bit more. And with a squat, it's really important that you get the depth, so you want to be getting parallel or below. In a squat, the glutes are the most activated and most engaged when they're in the stretched position, so that's basically when you're at the bottom of the squat. So the more depth you get into your squat, the more glute activation that you're going to get out of it. So after squats, I move on to hip thrusts, and this is my first set of hip thrusts in the week, and in this session I just do like your standard sort of hip thrusts. I'm really trying to focus on building my strength back up in these. Obviously I did kind of lose a little bit of strength during lockdown, so my main goal for these at the moment is just to try and build up the weight as much as I can back up to where it was before lockdown. And the main things that you want to focus on in a hip thrust is having your feet directly under your knees, chin tucked in, and trying to get that posterior pelvic tilt at the top of the movement, really squeezing your glutes. I have done another video where I've gone into quite a lot of detail on like how to do hip thrusts right and like some tips and stuff, so I will leave that link down below in case you missed it, in case you want a little bit more detail on how to do hip thrusts properly. Then we move on to my current favourite exercise, deficit reverse lunges. So to create the deficit, you're going to stand on a slightly raised surface. As you can see from the video, I like to use one of the bumper plates. Now you're just going to step back into a lunge, getting nice and low. So the main point of having a deficit is to increase the range of motion. So obviously because you're standing like slightly above the floor, it gives you that little bit extra room to get a bit lower into the lunge. Same as I mentioned with the squats, your glutes are the most activated in a stretched position when you're doing a lunge. So when you're at like the bottom of the lunge, that's when your glutes are most activated. So having that deficit there just helps you to get that a little bit lower and really stretch your glutes a little bit more, which obviously then increases glute activation. If you do decide to try these out on your own, just make sure that you're actually using the deficit. No point in adding a deficit into your lunges if you're not going to use it and you're not going to get lower than you would in a standard lunge. So next up we move on to Romanian deadlifts, or RDLs. These are another favourite of mine. I feel like they work pretty well for me. I personally prefer to use dumbbells rather than a barbell. It's just personal preference. Obviously you can use a barbell if you prefer. The main thing that you want to focus on these is getting that hip hinge movement. So pushing your hips back as far as they can go and then driving them forward, squeezing your glutes at the top. You don't want to be bending your knees too much. You don't want to be lifting with your lower back. All the movement is coming from your hips in this exercise. You don't need to be worrying about getting the weight as low as you can on this one, so you don't need to be taking it all the way to the floor. I find that taking it just below my knee works really well, and that's kind of where I feel it the most. Next up we've got extra range abductions, which is a bit of a new one for me. I started doing this in home workouts during lockdown. I think it was Lucy Davis that I saw do this, and I was wanting to mix up my home workout, so I thought I would try it out, and I actually really like it. So basically it's really similar to a lying side abduction, but because you're on a raised surface you've got a little bit of extra room to kind of move your leg up and down, which is where the extra range comes from. It doesn't really look like it's going to do much, but trust me, you can really feel this one. So I like to lie on a box. I just find that the comfiest. Take your leg sort of like behind slightly, and you're just going to keep your leg nice and straight, lift it up to the top, squeeze your bum and then bring it back down. Same as the deficit reverse lunges, you want to make sure that you're making use of the extra room. As you can see from the video, I do just do body weight, which is why I kind of increase the reps a little bit. And then to finish off the session, I do a little glute bridge ladder. So this is the Brett Contreras ladder. Basically the idea is that you work from 10 all the way down to 1. So you do 10 glute bridges, 10 abductions, 9 glute bridges, 9 abductions, 8 glute bridges, 8 abductions, and you work all the way down to 1. And you have to try and do it with minimal rest. I'm not gonna lie, this absolutely kills, but it's just such a nice way to finish up a workout and burn out your glutes. So session number 2 of the week is my upper body session. I just do like a bit of a mixture of like full upper body, a bit of shoulders, bit of chest, bit of back, bit of arms, just a full mixture. I personally prefer doing that rather than splitting it up into like push and pull. First exercise, we have got a dumbbell shoulder press. I do need to concentrate quite a lot when I'm doing this, so just ignore the faces that I'm making. There's not much to really kind of go through with shoulder press. It is quite a simple movement. You're just going to be sitting on a bench, elbows starting at right angles, pushing the weight up right above your head and then bringing it back down to that right angle. It does kind of secretly get your abs as well, because obviously you're really having to use your core to try and stabilize and to try and balance. So you're getting a little bit of an ab workout in there as well as working your shoulders. So win-win. Second exercise, I move on to a bent over row, which I think is probably one of my favourite upper body exercises. I always do my bent over row with an underhand grip just because I feel that in my back a lot more, but you can also do it with an overhand grip and just kind of play around with it and see what works best for you and stick with that. You want to try and keep your upper body sort of as still as possible when you're doing this so that it is your back that's doing all the work. And move on to a bit of chest. I think this is the only chest exercise that I've got in my plan at the moment. I don't really enjoy training chest that much. So yeah, I've just included the one exercise to make sure that I am still hitting it. So these are chest flies. This machine is a little bit different to the machines that you get in most of the gyms, but it's the same sort of idea. You want to have a slight bend in your elbow and then you're just going to bring the handles round to meet in the middle and then take it back out to the side. And then you should feel it working across the top of your chest. Next up, we have got another back exercise. So this time I am doing a single arm dumbbell row. There is a couple of ways that you can do this one, but doing it off the back of a bench is what works best for me. So you're just going to have a dumbbell in one hand and now you're going to lean on the back of the bench with your other hand. You're just going to pull the weight up towards your hip, squeezing your back at the top and then taking it back down. Obviously it is a pretty similar movement to the bent over row, but because you're doing a single arm, it's forcing each side to work on its own. It'll just kind of help to even out any imbalances that you've got. I mean, most people tend to have one side that is slightly stronger than the other, so doing single arm or single leg stuff can really help just to even that out. Next exercise is another one of my favourite upper body exercises. So this is a cable rear delt fly. Some gyms have a machine that you can do this on, but I just much prefer doing it on the cables. I feel like you get much more out of the movement, and I personally really feel it a lot more when I use the cables than when I use the machine. So you just want to have it set sort of just above eye level. You don't need any of the attachments, you're just going to hold on to like the ball part that's already on the cable. You want to keep a slight bend in your elbow. You're just going to pull the cable out to the side, really squeeze the top of your back as you pull it out, and then take it back into the middle. So basically your hands are sort of making like a semicircle, and you really want to try and squeeze your back as you're pulling to the side. Then to finish off my upper body session, I do a little superset. So for anyone that doesn't know, a superset is basically when you do 2 exercises back to back. So for this one, I do lateral raises and hammer curls. Lateral raises are a shoulder exercise. In general, your arms are relatively straight and maybe just a slight bend in your elbow, but yeah, relatively straight. You're just going to lift the weights up to the side so they're at shoulder height, and then you're just going to bring them back in. With the hammer curls, same again, you're going to have a dumbbell in each hand, keeping your elbows tucked into the side. You're just going to lift the dumbbell up towards your shoulder and then bring it back down. I like to do one at a time on this one and alternate. So moving on to session number 3, and it is my second lower body session of the week. All the exercises that I do in this session are completely different to the first lower body session, but again, they are all glute focused. So I start this session off with sumo deadlifts. Sumo deadlifts just kind of put a little bit extra focus on your glutes and your hamstrings than a conventional deadlift does. It is the same sort of movement, the only difference is you have a wider stance and you have your toes turned out a little bit. But other than that, it's pretty much the same as a standard deadlift. As with any deadlift, make sure that you keep your back nice and straight. Make sure that you're lifting with your legs and not your back, because obviously you don't want to injure yourself. So make sure that all the power is in your legs and that you're pushing up through your heels. Next up, we've got walking lunges, which are definitely one of those love-hate exercises. I prefer to do walking lunges with dumbbells, but obviously you can do a barbell if you prefer. To get a little bit more glute engagement out of them, I tend to step sort of more diagonally than stepping straight forward. So basically kind of like a wide stance walking lunge, and I just find that I feel that a lot more in my glutes that way. Make sure that you get nice and low into the lunge, and you also want to make sure that you're pushing up off your front leg, and that's the leg that should be doing all the work. Next up, we have got another little superset, which I think is my all-time favourite superset. I feel this one so much and I absolutely love it. The 2 exercises that we're going to do are a cable pull through and a cable abduction. So for the cable pull through, you're going to have the cable set right at the bottom. Using the rope attachment or the handles, you're going to hold it in between your legs, take a few steps out, make sure that you don't turn it into a squat. By doing that, you're putting a lot more focus on the quads than on the glutes. Just want to have a slight bend in your knee, make sure that it's your hips that are doing all the moving. Your hips are moving backwards and then driving forwards. Personally, when I'm doing cable pull through, I like to have my feet quite wide with my toes turned out, and again that just helps me to feel it in my glutes a little bit more. And then the second exercise, we've got cable abductions. I just put the little ankle strap around my ankle. If your gym's not got an ankle strap, you can just use the handles and pop it around your foot. You're basically just going to keeping your leg like pretty straight. You're just going to lift up to the side, squeeze your bum, and then take it back in. Next up, we have got a seated hamstring curl. I normally prefer a lying hamstring curl, but the gym that I've been going to doesn't have a lying one, they only have the seated one. But I've actually been really enjoying using it, and I can really feel it in my hamstrings. So can't complain, I guess. It's a pretty easy one, obviously, like it is a machine, so there's not really much that you can kind of do wrong with it. I find that this one works a lot more and you can feel it a lot more when you go slow, especially when you're releasing the weight and bringing it back up. Do it really slowly and it will kill your hamstrings. Then I move on to triple contraction glute bridges. I really like these and I find that they work really well for me, so I do tend to always have these somewhere in my training plan. I like to use a resistance band and a weight just to really try and increase the intensity. It's basically just a standard glute bridge, But for the triple contraction, you're just going to do like 3 little pulses at the top of every rep, and then that's where you get the triple contraction. Again, that just kind of increases the intensity a little bit than a standard glute bridge. For glute bridges, I feel like most people tend to go like relatively light, but you can probably manage a lot more than what you think. So I would definitely try and recommend going for a heavier weight. So when I was doing them in this video, I had a 20 kg kettlebell and the band. So I would definitely try and push yourself and try and up the weight on those a little bit, just to kind of try and get the most out of the movement. Then to finish off the second lower body session, I've got another little finisher like burnout thing. So this is just a banded seated abduction, and I do a little pyramid for this one. So the first round I do 20 reps. Second round I do 30 reps, third round I do 40 reps, fourth round back down to 30 reps, and then the fifth round back down to 20 reps. So you're basically starting off kind of easier, building up, getting harder in the middle, and then coming back down, finishing off easier again. So it's 20, 30, 40, 30, 20. And I usually like to give myself just a 10-second break in between each round, just again to try and like kind of ramp up the intensity a little bit. And I just find that this is like a really nice way just to finish off the workout and really burn out the glutes. Moving on to the fourth and final session of the week, I always finish off on my full body workout. It's just a little bit of everything. This is the first time in ages that I've had like a full body session in my training plan. I'm actually really enjoying it. It is quite nice just kind of going in and getting a bit of a mixture of everything. So I start off this session with my second lot of hip thrusts of the week, but I do a bit of a different variation for this session. So for this one I do hip thrust abductions. So you are going to need a bit of a lighter weight for this one than what you would use normally. Any type of abduction exercise is going to help to target the upper part of your glute, which is the area that I want to focus on most at the moment. So I am trying to add in like quite a few different abduction exercises into my training plan, just to really try and help kind of build that area up. So that's why I've chosen this variation of a hip thrust for this session, but there are lots of other ones that you can choose as well. Next up, we have got an overhead press, which is a shoulder exercise. So you're gonna take a bar, kind of holding it just in front of your chest, pushing it right up above your head, and then you're just going to bring it back down. It is a pretty standard one, this one. There's not really much that you can sort of do wrong. Just make sure that you're not putting any unnecessary strain on your lower back. If you are feeling it in your lower back, kind of try and having a bit of a split stance where you've got 1 foot forward and 1 foot back, and then that'll probably help a little bit. But yeah, not much to really say about this one. It is pretty self-explanatory. You're literally just pushing the bar up above your head and bringing it back down. Moving on to the second lower body exercise of the session, I do a leg press. Because I am trying to target my glutes a little bit more and put more focus onto my glutes, I do have quite a high, wide stance on the leg press. I find that that really helps me to feel it a lot more in my glutes rather than my quads. So I like to have my feet quite high and wide. Again, leg press is pretty self-explanatory. You get in full range of motion and you are pushing up through your heels. Next exercise is a seated row. Again, this machine is slightly different to the normal sort of seated row that you see in most gyms, but it works pretty much the same. Basically, you're just going to sit up nice and straight, pull the handles in towards your tummy, elbows out the back, really squeezing your shoulder blades together, squeezing your back, and then taking it out. Next up, we've got a lat pull down, which I kind of have a bit of a love-hate relationship with. Sometimes I really enjoy it and like I really feel it in my back. Other times not so much. But I am going through a bit of a phase at the moment where I am really enjoying it, so I'm making the most of it while it lasts. It is a pretty simple movement, but it is one that you see quite a lot of people doing wrong. The most common thing that people do wrong is pulling the bar down too low. So you want your forearms to remain vertical through the whole movement. If they're coming more sort of horizontal, then you're probably pulling the bar too low. Just make sure that it's coming to the top of your chest and no lower. So to finish off the session, I have got another little superset. The first exercise I do is 1.5 rep goblet squats. So you're just going to hold a dumbbell in at your chest, take it down into a squat, come halfway up, back down and all the way back up. So basically you're going down, halfway, down and up. Same as always with a squat, make sure that you're getting nice and low, pushing up through your heels. So once I've done those, I go straight into frog pumps. So I use a band and a weight on this one. So a frog pump is basically the same as a glute bridge, except your stance is a little bit different. So rather than having your feet flat on the floor, you're going to have the soles of your feet together and your knees pushed out. And then you're just going to drive your hips up, squeeze your glutes at the top, and then bring it back down. So frog pumps are actually slightly better for glute engagement than a standard glute bridge, because having your knees pushed out like that means that your hips are in an externally rotated position, which increases glute activation. So it is slightly better for your glutes than a standard glute bridge, which is why I have included it in my plan. Having the band there just kind of means that you're pushing out against the band and obviously kind of increasing that abduction. And that is the full week of workouts that I'm currently doing. As I mentioned at the beginning of the video, if you do want to follow it, then by all means do so. But just bear in mind that it is specific to me and my goals and what works for me. And just because it works for me doesn't mean that it's going to work for everyone. But it is obviously there for you to take some ideas from if you want to. If you do try out any of the workouts, either leave a comment below or send me a message on Instagram and let me know how you got on. Let me know how you found it. I really hope you found the video helpful, and I hope you enjoyed getting a bit of an insight into how I like to train in the gym. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.